Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Change Podcast. And I just want to tell you, I am so excited about the guest we have today. I cannot wait to talk to her, and I know she'll have some amazing information for you. She's a former attorney, which I find absolutely fascinating because now she's a psychedelic facilitator. She specializes in psilocybin support, and she has helped over 300 people safely reconnect to self. And I think that is so important right now. And she puts it this is a radically honest approach to transformation. And everyone, I want to welcome Julie. I'm Cyvonne.
Cyvonne.
Cyvonne. Yeah, that one throws me. I don't know why, but you probably have one of the most fascinating bios I've read because I know an attorney thinks differently than a psilocybin facilitator. Or can
Yeah,
you?
I do think like going to law school changes your brain in a way that no other experience will. It forces you to think in a different way, and that's actually a huge reason why I have no regrets about my path, and I think it actually makes me a better coach, facilitator, etc. because I'm thinking in a way that not very many people in my field are. And it helps me just bring a very unique lens to this work.
I think you're absolutely right, and I find it amazing. But how did you start your journey with this?
I suppose I started actually my last year in law school. I had gone through a breakup and I I felt like I don't know if your listeners know that meme, but there's like a little dog in a cafe. It's a cartoon and like the cafe is on fire and the dog's like, "I'm fine." That's how I felt. It was actually like right before the professional responsibility exam you take in your 3L year, and I just like had to compartmentalize this breakup and study for the exam. Because if you don't pass the professional responsibility, that's not good, right? um,
Right.
and so I ended up going to therapy because I was like, clearly something like uh, I don't feel good. Like I feel like I'm on the verge of a breakdown, right? And so in therapy, it was, week after week, I was crying about the fact that my dad died when I was little. And my mom, I always feel like people are doing the best they can with what they have, but she never put me in therapy or anything like that. And so I never really had like emotional support tools to deal with that event. And I definitely had years of undiagnosed anxiety, depression. I had really intense dissociation, but I did not know what that was. I had no word to describe the experience I would sometimes have. And it was so weird that I didn't know how to explain to someone what I was feeling. Um, and I also started having panic attacks in college. So going to therapy and just really unpacking for the first time, like my dad's death, the fact that I then definitely was codependent, and all these things. And therapy I found very re-traumatizing. It was like week after week of my mom messed me up, and it really actually hurt my relationship with my mom because like
Oh,
how useful is that to like blame someone? And I'm not taking away responsibility from her or anyone else, but it wasn't moving me forward in any way. In fact, it kept just like picking the scab and re-traumatizing me. So I stopped therapy. But I liked the idea of like working on myself. Like clearly there were things to unpack within me. And so I found a coach when I started practicing law. I think I was practicing for a couple years at that point when I found this woman. And in between like therapy and this coach and things, I had been prescribed Prozac.
uh,
Um, and the Prozac, I mean, it definitely leveled me out, but it muted me as well. Like I wasn't so sad, but I wasn't so anything. Like it stunted my expression of joy. Like as much as it stopped the intense negative feelings, it also stopped the intense positive feelings. And so you kind of only exist in this like middle spectrum. So I didn't want to be on Prozac. I knew that. I found coaching. I really like coaching. And then a lot of stuff happened throughout. I never really wanted to be a lawyer. Like, let's put it that way. Not like deep, like in the
oh.
sense of my core. It was something that I was doing because I felt like I had to do something. And that seemed like a good thing to do. Um, but eventually I felt like the river of life, which is kind of how I view life, was smacking me around enough that I had to be like, okay, something is not working. What what do I want? And I heard this podcast, and this woman said, do you want to get certified to coach? And it was very intuitive. It was just like, yes, I do. So I got certified to coach, and then a year and a half like into that, I found psychedelics for myself, and I realized how powerful they were, how effective, how quick they worked. And I was like, this is what I want to bring to people, because it worked for me to actually heal the root cause of my anxiety and depression, and I want to give that to other people.
Well, I just think nature can help us in so many ways versus over the counter pills that they prescribe. So when you were taking those over the counter pills, you talked about it dumbing you down or numbing you, correct?
Yeah, I felt
So
like you didn't get as much of anything.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And as we know, psilocybin, that is that for me, that was just eye-opening when I first did mine. I mean, it was just a microdose, and it made me realize I was going through a divorce, and like you, depressed and sad and issues, and it just all of a sudden I was driving home. And on a microdose, when I say driving home, I was just, it was so mild that there were no colors, there were no anything. But it dawned on me that, I had never been in a relationship with a man where I was loved properly. And it was just like an epiphany. It just slammed me. And so, what kind of epiphanies did you have when you were doing that?
Oh, wow. I mean, well, first I just want to say for your
We still have a lot of time. Let's go.
for your listeners, like what you said about I wasn't seeing anything, I wasn't incapacitated, that's a true microdose. If you're feeling something, you're not microdosing. This is something where I really will like fight someone on, and I don't believe in right or wrong, and like I'm right and you're wrong, and these like good and bad type binaries. But if you're feeling something, you're not microdosing, right? In that way. Of course, like it might feel you might feel more peace, you might feel more love and acceptance, but you shouldn't be feeling in any way like you couldn't drive, like you couldn't pick your kids up from soccer, that you couldn't go about your normal daily routine. So just wanted to throw that in there. And yeah, what a heart-wrenching thing to land, but also in some ways maybe a thing that liberated you. Um for just seeing like, hey, this hasn't been it, and now I know what it is, and I know that's the thing, right? Like we go through these experiences where maybe people don't treat us well or how we would like or need or deserve, but in that dichotomy we see what isn't it, and we gain more information about what is.
Mm.
Like everything is a learning opportunity. I mean, it's so hard to say because I've been in this work for 5 years now, right? So I get them all the time. um Let me think about one that happened for me recently. Um, well, from a journey I recently took myself on, so this is like a full dose, not a microdose. It was just this overwhelming appreciation for like how good my life is right now and how much like I have to enjoy. And it was very simple. It was simply like really liking my yard, right? I have this nice yard, it's fenced in. I have 3 animals, seeing them be so happy in it, how cozy my home is. I was just looking outside on a beautiful fall afternoon day, and the sun was shining through the leaves. And we live in a culture in the United States where so many of us just want to escape, right? We want something else. It's like we're always booked to the next vacation. We're booking Barbados, we're booking a Europe tour, and we feel like we need to get out of or away from our day to day. And until you find peace in what is, you're never going to fully enjoy anything else.
Yeah, that's very true. And that's one of the things I've been trying to teach. Everything starts from within. Not you can run to 1,000 houses, you can run to 1,000 new relationships, but everything is internal. But one of the things I noticed when I did have that epiphany is there was no anger. It was
Mm.
like it was just showing me it is what it is. Now go work on you because you're pulling them to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like there was because you're right? Like if there were to be anger, then it would still be at the end of the day. I feel like every emotion is a reflection of something within us. So yeah, you're angry at the guy, but then you'd also be angry at you, right? For
Mhm.
accepting it, for tolerating it. And like that's a normal part of the grieving process that I do think we all get to experience. But it sounds like you were already working through that and like had put that piece. and the acceptance had come in, like we talk about whatever those so many steps of grief, right? And from there
Absolutely.
you could move forward toward, okay, like I have accepted the grief. Beautiful. Now where do I want to go from here?
I love that. And what kind of people do you work with? I'm sure there's all kinds, but is there like one group that you target to come to you for certain things?
Yep, high performing women, women who are very successful, but they've gotten their success through pushing, through forcing, and now they want to experience what that would be like to maintain their level of success and even grow in their success without feeling like they took their foot off the gas. But really it's an inner journey of capacity, right? Because at that level, like those women don't need, their skills are sharp, they don't need another strategy, they don't need anything else other than to learn how to hold more energetically. And that does not come from more doing, but like kind of what you said, more being. And a lot of nervous system regulation, which I know is a term that is like thrown around a lot on the internet, but scientifically what psychedelics do is down regulate your nervous system. And there's very clear pathways through which that occurs in the brain that psychedelics are activating and deactivating.
Wow, that really is amazing. And one of the things I want you to touch on is the psilocybin network under the ground.
Like the mycelium?
Mycelium, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. The biggest living thing on the planet is actually a mushroom. It's connected through a mycelium network. I believe it's in Washington. It's like 2 miles in radius or diameter. Don't quote me specifically on that. But it's huge, right? And mushrooms, I believe, have ascensions, right? Like they're talking, they're connecting with one another. And so when, we ingest them, I feel like we're participating in that sentient experience with them. And that's like a little bit more along my woo belief. I have very like scientific grounded evidence of what psilocybin is doing in your brain, but I think we would be really remiss if we didn't also look at the energetic component, because we do live in a binary world and nothing is one thing, right? Everything has shades and we live on a spectrum of the duality of life, right? Like the good and the bad, the highs and the lows, the scientific and the spiritual. Um, but mushrooms are like trees, right? Trees connect through roots, and trees in a
Mhm.
forest, if one tree isn't doing well and needs more water, another tree will divert part of its water stream to that tree so that tree can continue to flourish. And in the same way, mushrooms are in community with one another, connected through their mycelium network.
Okay. And like, I went for just a hike the other day and I saw the most huge, beautiful red mushroom growing on a tree. So would that mean there's a mycelium network underground there?
Well, every mushroom that you see has both a fruiting body and a mycelium, right? Like, and that's also what's interesting. It's like it's really important, especially like for your listeners who are maybe they just want to get into functional mushrooms, right? So when functional mushrooms are non-psychedelic, they're things like lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, turkey tail. Um, and you really want to read the label. Is it the fruiting body that is in the supplement, or is it the mycelium? Mycelium is obviously really important, but you want to have the fruiting body. That's where you're going to get more of like, and the fruiting body is the part that you see, right?
Mhm.
Um, but you want to have the fruiting body because that's where you're going to get. So, for instance, lion's mane helps with cognition, can help with brain fog. For people who had long haul COVID after the pandemic, it helped them a lot getting some of that like um, clearness back in their head. So make sure you're looking at for fruiting body versus mycelium. But yeah, so every mushroom has both the fruiting body and the mycelium.
Okay. And you talked about turkey tail, and that's one of the ones that I actually used to help heal my dog.
Mm-hmm.
He was
Yeah.
he was itchy and it would make scabs. I started just putting a little bit in his food every day, and he was like a new little doggy. He had a little more energy, was healing. And so obviously if good for a person, it can work for animals as well, correct?
Yeah, so I don't know specifically. Like I know, for instance, you'd think a grape is fine for a human, right? But a grape is not good for a dog. So I don't know specifically which ones like are safe to give to animals slash in what form. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really interesting. Like a lot of what we take supplements for, we could just take functional mushrooms for. So turkey tail, like you mentioned, is one that's great for cancer patients to take. Reishi is kind of like, to me, the jack of all trade functional mushroom. It's great for a lot of things. Chaga is a really good source of natural energy. So it is really amazing what different types of mushrooms will do.
Yeah, I keep reading up on them, and it's almost like nature's superfood, not just helping you through emotional things, but physical things,
Yep.
And so are mushrooms legal in every state or no?
No, right now I was just talking to my mentor about this, my business mentor, and he was like, we're talking about, a J curve. And so we have cannabis, right, which is as a pretty good example where cannabis was like, well, we think about not that long ago, right? How many people were put away for 20 years for cannabis offenses, right?
Yes.
And now like there's dispensaries on every corner, and we've had like a huge like a shift in that. And so when I think about psilocybin right now, it's kind of like at this point of the J curve where it's still down, but it's like about to, go up. And so we look at Oregon, we look at Colorado, Washington D.C. actually, because they make their own rules, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, California is an interesting. I mean, California kind of does what it wants to do too. I just moved from California, but in certain areas, like it's decriminalized and you can get it in dispensaries, and other areas it's not. And so, I mean, when we think about the way cannabis is now, I don't feel like it's going to be very long until psilocybin is that way.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, why do you think they're keeping those things from us?
I mean, at the end of the day, there's no money at a root cause solution, right? Like, I tend to not be Miss Conspiracy Theory by any means, but we do look at, right, big pharma. Everyone just watched all those opioid documentaries or, TV shows, dramatizations of what happened in the opioid crisis. Um, this country is a capitalist nation, and they want to be able to monetize um, whatever they can and profit off of it. And that's what's so interesting. I mean, I probably do more psychedelics than the average person because I'm a facilitator, and it's really important for me to stay like in my work, right? But the whole point of to me of psychedelics is helping people heal at the root cause, and then they don't need to keep taking the psychedelics. Like for instance, if for my clients, I work with them with microdosing, and like let's say there's someone like me who is struggling with anxiety and depression, right? We get to a really good point where after 4 to 6 rounds of microdosing, actually 6 is pretty high, I would say 4 is the average, right? 4 rounds of microdosing, they feel great. They feel like they went from feeling like a 3 out of 10 to a 7 or 8 out of 10 on average, right? And then I tell them, okay, awesome. Like you have integrated, you have embodied, you've brought the magic of mushrooms into your everyday life. Beautiful. Now, I would say maybe once or twice a year, take yourself through a month-long protocol to as maintenance, but it's not something where you have to keep doing it all the time, right? I mean, how many people have been prescribed something by their doctor, particularly an SSRI or SNRI, and there's never any intention to get you off. There's never any like, let's offload this. It's always like, just I'll keep giving it to you. You'll probably take it until you die. And it's like that's not the way it is with psychedelics. Like you will get better, and then you won't need to do it all the time. And so that's just not a money making product.
Proposition, yeah. And I am a conspiracy theorist, so I love how you're eloquently putting this, and I totally agree with you. And is it harmful to take it every day?
Oh my gosh, that is my biggest like pet peeve when people like just kind of offhandedly say I microdose every day. I'm like, well, you shouldn't. Actually, you're getting no benefit. Like it's not harmful. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. Actually, but that's the thing. Nothing is going to happen to you because you're very quickly going to build up a tolerance. It's very important to follow a protocol. A protocol is a schedule, and every single protocol has off and on days. There's not one that has every single on day. And you should never, I mean, some people will say, and this is kind of where we get into the weeds of like facilitator styles and things, but I don't think there's good evidence to say you should follow a protocol for more than 90 days. And I think 90 days is really long. And then basically you want to take a whole week off for every total gram consumed. So for instance, I'm running a program right now. We're microdosing together as a group for a month. We're taking 100 milligram capsules, 4 days on, 3 days off. So over the course of a month, total we're ingesting like 1.6 grams of psilocybin. And that would mean my people need to take a week and a half off at the end of the month before starting again. So it's not harmful. Like literally nothing's going to happen to you, but like literally nothing is going to happen to you because psychedelics are one of the quickest things that build up tolerance. in our brain, like much quicker than we think about like alcohol tolerance or whatever, right? So we think about that experiment, the Be Here Now, right? Like Timothy Leary and Ram Dass, and they're just trying to like take as many psychedelics as they can to like write, you know, to see what happens, to write this book. And the thing is, they had to continue to take increasing amounts because their tolerance was so high. So no, nothing bad is going to happen if you microdose every day, but nothing is going to happen to you.
Okay, that's a great answer. And now I saw in your bio something about subconscious reprogramming. Can you explain that to us, how that works?
Yeah, so like something like 95 to 97, I just was listening to a podcast with Andrew Huberman and someone, I can't remember exactly who it was, but 97% of what we do is motivated by unconscious thoughts and behaviors, right? Like very little of our behavior throughout the day is conscious. It comes from a very like present place in our mind. So if so much is driven by our unconscious, then like we're focusing on like just manipulating the conscious thoughts, like, oh, I'll choose to think a better thought here, but what about the part that exists below the surface, right? So this is the deeper work that we do, for instance, with hypnosis. That's like, so when I got certified to coach, that was one of the modalities I learned through hypnosis. Breath work is one of my favorite modalities. The
Mm.
breath work that I facilitate can help us like shut down the prefrontal cortex a little bit, like that thinking mind. So the parts that are aware and awake are more of those unconscious parts. So that's where I feed people like certain affirmations and things like that to help us like get into the subconscious. But at the end, like when we really peel back the layers, right? And we can become aware consciously of our unconscious, right? So when we think about, for instance, I don't believe in laziness, right? I believe that there is a sense of dysregulation or fear present that is stopping us from doing something. So let's say this person isn't taking action in their business, and we start to kind of peel back the layers and we peel back the onion and we peel it back. What we get to is like, I don't feel good enough to have a business. I don't feel smart enough. I don't feel like I am worthy. Okay, so we got to the deeper, like subconscious part of you that is activated. And then there are certain modalities we can use to specifically like work with that. So you can become consciously aware of the unconscious processes. But that is where most of these shifts happen that lead to real, like actual change in our life.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. Now, have you experimented with other plant medicines like the ayahuasca, or what is it, hape? There's several that I've heard of. Do you do any of that personally, or do you lead groups with that?
I personally have yes, ayahuasca, yes, rape, peyote, wachuma, personally, right? For my own personal practice. I don't feel called to lead with any of those, like to facilitate, although I do facilitate with LSD, and this is another one that people can fight me on, but LSD is synthesized from a fungus ergot. And although, like, yes, it was made in a lab by Albert Hoffman, God bless him, it still comes from the fungus, right? Like at the end of the day, it's something that actually like could naturally occur. Like the synthesization of ergot into LSD could happen in nature, and they think that that might have been what is happening in like certain historical events and contexts, like that thing where people were dancing for like 30 days back in the medieval times. They think that might have been like an accidental like LSD ingestion. So I love LSD. LSD is actually my favorite psychedelic, and some people don't want to call it a plant medicine. That's fine. It is in my heart, so I do facilitate with LSD and psilocybin.
Okay. And how do you measure a dose for a person? I guess I'm asking because yes, I have done LSD back in the 70s, long, 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 long time ago, going to concerts, things like that. But how do you, and looking back, I probably shouldn't have, but how do you measure it? How do you know what person's going to accept what dose?
For LSD,
Yes.
yeah. So LSD is measured in micrograms. And what I like about the source that I have for LSD is that it comes delivered in a spray. Well, actually, I have it here because I'm microdosing LSD for the program that I'm running. But it comes just in the spray bottle. So 20 sprays is kind of like a standard full dose. It's like if we want to think about like colloquially, like what you would hope to get in a tab of acid. But that's the thing about tabs that are hard, right? Because you don't really know what's like on your tab. But 20 micrograms is like it's sort of like we think about in mushrooms, 2 grams is sort of the minimum quote unquote full dose, right? Okay. So for microdosing with acid, I'm a big slow and low person, meaning like let's start somewhere that, especially if someone feels like, oh, I don't know, I feel like I'm sensitive to wine or other things. Cool. So 1 spray, right? And then try 2 sprays. How does that feel, right? And then we could go to 3. So I have one client who she does 3 sprays, but she also is like has a pretty high tolerance in general. Like that's just kind of how her body is. I haven't microdosed with acid in a while, so yesterday I did 1 spray. I felt totally fine. I might try 2 today and just like see how my body reacts. Because again, we don't want to feel anything. If I were to feel anything, I'd be like, okay, let's pull it back. That was not a microdose. That's not what I want to be experiencing. And then for a full dose, if someone, is totally new to this, I would start them off if they wanted to have the full experience at 20 sprays. I would wait about an hour, see how they were feeling, and then I would maybe dose them in 5 spray increments to get them to where like they felt really good. But basically, like in psychedelics, you can always sprinkle on a little more, but you can't ever take it off. So I'm a slow and low person.
Good tip. Yeah. And you are so versed in this and you have so much knowledge. Where do you find this information? How did you come to be like the expert in your field?
Well, I thought that I wanted to be a doctor when I was an undergrad, and so I started working in a research lab. So I'm very familiar with how to read the research. I also took a ton of like psych stats and things like that. So when we're looking at like values and things in papers, I understand the significance of that. So I'm a big fan of reading a research paper. That's what I think we get a lot of keyboard warriors on the internet where like they see someone else say something and so they take it as like Bible and then they repost it. And I'm like, well, why don't we just go to the source and see what the source actually says? Like, let's not do this weird little game of telephone. I like to read the research. A great book that I've read multiple times that I would really encourage anyone out there interested in this to read is by Michael Pollan. It's called How to Change Your Mind. He is a scientific author. And he talks about LSD, psilocybin. I don't know if he talks about ayahuasca, but he does. It's an amazing book. And you don't have to be a science person to read it, although he is a scientific author. I think he makes it really approachable for people. And then I've taken different, courses about facilitation. So facilitation is more just like, can you safely administer psychedelics? Can you handle an aberration should it occur? Can you control for set and setting? Coaching is more these transformational tools. So that's also where I feel like I'm distinct in this world. It's a lot of people facilitate, but not a lot of people integrate and help you actually transform. So I think both are really important, and I do both.
Wow. Well, I think you're amazing. And I know we're almost out of time, but this is so enlightening. And I think it's a story a lot of people need to hear because some of these things have such a bad reputation. And you've enlightened people to what is and what isn't. So before we leave, could you just give a few nuggets of what a person should look for? How to find a facilitator? Obviously, I've got your links and I would be the first one to head to you, but just give us a few golden nuggets about this path you're traveling.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole. I really received that. And thank you. I appreciate that. One thing that I'll say about finding your perfect facilitator is trust how you're feeling. So psychedelics are very suggestible. And if you feel like you don't like that person, like if you're listening to me talk and you're like, that girl is not for me, I'm not a fan, that's totally fair. And it's good that you recognize that. And you should never want to have an experience with me because that negative feeling about me will negatively influence your experience. So it's really important to find someone who, like, not to sound too cheesy, but like you like their vibe. And then, yeah, I mean, that it is hard. It is hard because not everyone is willing to talk about it in an open way like I am on the internet. So, sometimes you can just search for a psychedelic facilitator like on Instagram or things like that. But if you're looking for your perfect person and I'm not it, I'm always happy to refer you. I do obviously know quite a few people in this field. If anyone wants to like DM me on Instagram, I would not be offended if you're like, hey, you're not for me, but I would love a referral to someone. But yeah, sometimes you can just search it. And I think people are speaking about it more openly, which is cool. But I would honestly just take a Google search. You just never know what might come up. And if all else fails, message me. I'll help you.
Perfect. Well, you've given us so much information. You would be my person for sure. I can tell you that. But thank you for coming on. And for anyone looking for ways to connect, I have all of her links in the description of this. And personally, who knows? I might be seeing you in person someday. So thank you so much for your wisdom, your knowledge, and thank you for sharing it with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicole. This was amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. To our audience, take care. Get a hold of Julie if you need to take a really good trip. Okay. Thank you.